All right, today we're going to jump into something pretty wild. We're looking at a radical reimagining of one of history's most famous figures, Jesus, but through the eyes of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Welcome to our explainer on the parable of the open hand. So let's just kick things off with the one question that turns everything on its head. What if Jesus wasn't the founder of Christianity, but was actually its very first opponent? Seriously, hold that thought, because it's the key to unlocking everything else we're going to talk about.
Now, you probably know the story on the left, right? Jesus, the founder of a religion, the Redeemer. That's the traditional view. But then you look at what Nietzsche saw, and it's a totally different picture. He saw a holy anarchist, a free spirit, who was completely against the kind of institution that would eventually be built in his name.
So you might be asking, why? Why would Nietzsche even want to do this? Well, it was all part of this massive, ambitious project he had, a reevaluation of all values. He basically wanted to take a sledgehammer to the moral systems that had dominated the West for thousands of years and see what was left. Okay, so let's picture the scene from the parable. You've got this crowd, and listen to what they're asking for. They want to know about sin and judgment and a judge coming down from the clouds. See how their entire focus is on the future? It's all about punishment and reward somewhere else at some other time. Now, Nietzsche had a word for this exact feeling, this mindset. He called it ressentiment. And it's not just being resentful. Oh no, it's way deeper than that. It's this poisonous hostility, this worldview built on blaming someone else for your problems and just waiting, hoping for some kind of imaginary revenge in the future. But the Nazarene's response? He just completely ignores what they're asking. He flips the script entirely. He asks them, why are you looking up there at the clouds for something that's already inside of you? He brings it all back from the external future to the internal present.
And this gets right to the heart of it. See, for Nietzsche's Nazarene, the kingdom of heaven isn't some place you get to later. It's not a prize at the end of the game. It is a condition of the heart, something you can feel right here, right now. It's an inner reality of pure bliss.
So this is the big contrast, and the parable gives us this amazing metaphor to grasp it. You have the clenched fist. That's the crowd's worldview. It's full of that ressentiment, and it's tightly holding on to the hope of some future reward. And then you have the open hand. That's the Nazarene's way, finding bliss, immediate inner peace right now. So what you end up with is this really strange, unique psychological profile. We're not talking about a moral hero here. Nietzsche paints him as a holy idiot, a soul with a pathological sensitivity. I mean, this is a person who isn't choosing to be good. He's literally incapable of even understanding concepts like guilt or punishment. And this completely changes how you read one of the most famous commands ever, right? Love your enemy. For this Nazarene, that's not some impossible moral challenge. No, it's a survival mechanism. For a soul that's so sensitive, that feels everything so deeply, any kind of conflict is just unbearable pain. Non-resistance isn't a virtue. It's just necessary to survive.
And it doesn't stop there. This even redefines eternal life. Forget living forever in the afterlife. Eternal life is something you can find right now by reaching this state of inner detachment where the noise and chaos of the outside world just fades away. You find your eternity in this very moment.
But you know, this kind of inner peace, it's fragile. And right on cue, the parable brings in a new character, the scribe. And he's got, as Nietzsche puts it, theologian's blood in his heart. This guy represents the beginning of the end, the moment the message starts to get twisted into an institution.
And this is where we get to what Nietzsche called the disangel. You've heard of the gospel, the good news. Well, this is the bad news. This is Nietzsche's term for how the church took this beautiful, simple message of how to live and twisted into a rigid, complex doctrine of what to believe.
And Nietzsche lays out exactly how he thinks this great corruption happened. It's like a four-step process. First, you start with the Nazarene's simple practice of inner peace. Then, step 2, the church comes in and injects the idea of guilt. Step 3, the cross gets twisted into a sacrifice for that guilt. And what's the end result? A doctrine of imaginary revenge, the very thing the Nazarene was trying to get people to let go of.
And the Nazarene's own words from the story just cut right through all the noise. I have come to show you how to live, not what to believe. Practice versus doctrine, an inner feeling versus a set of rules. That is the whole fight in a nutshell. So,
In Nietzsche's view, what the church ended up creating was the crucified. Not the man, but the symbol. A symbol for a kind of guilt that the original Nazarene, in his almost childlike state, would never have even understood.
And this leads to what's really the tragedy of the whole story, at least in Nietzsche's telling. The Nazarene says, "They will call me Redeemer, but I am merely a child who died too early." His message, his way of life, it was all cut short before it had a chance to fully grow.
Which just hangs this huge question in the air, doesn't it? What if he had lived?
Because Nietzsche hints that if he had lived, he might have become something else entirely. The Nazarene's path was a noble one, but it was ultimately a retreat, a flight from pain. But the path of the overman, Nietzsche's ultimate ideal, that's the polar opposite. It's about active self-mastery. It's about saying a powerful, thundering yes to all of life, even the suffering.
But of course, that's not the story we got. And so the parable ends with those famous last words, "It is finished." But in this version, it's not a cry of agony or sacrifice. It's the ultimate statement of his whole philosophy, a final, peaceful expression of that present tense condition of the heart, being totally, completely at one with that moment.
And that's what this whole parable leaves us wrestling with. Is eternal life something we have to wait for, some reward down the line, or is it a reality, a state of mind that we can tap into right now? That's the challenge Nietzsche's Nazarene puts to all of us.